So let's talk about what's happening among students today. I think the best way to answer that question is with a little research. So way back in 1954, we began to hear about a research psychologist by the name of Dr. Julian Rotter. He was a prof at Ohio State University, and he had developed this social learning theory. And he developed a scale to measure what he was finding. The scale basically measured whether a student was developing an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. Now, in case you forgot from psych class when you first learned this, let me remind you. If you're an internal locus of control person, you're among the people that believe that you're responsible and in control of your own success. You're the person that owns it, that feels like you're in control of your life. This is what every mom and dad wants to develop in their children. If it is to be, it's up to me. If you're an external locus of control person, you're among the people that believe that fate or somehow external forces control the outcomes of your life. And while we would all agree it's a little of both, those that develop an internal locus just tend to own their exams, their tests, their studies, their friendships, everything in their life. And again, it's a little of both, but here's what Dr. Rotter discovered after 9 years of researching on this scale. By 1963, Rotter concluded that those with an internal locus became measurably more successful in life than those with an external locus. And that's predictable, isn't it? They took better care of their health and fitness. They took better care of their jobs and career. They took better care of their marriages and family. It's what we want in American citizens, and yet we were losing it. Slowly but surely, over the last 4 to 5 decades, we've been trending the wrong direction. In fact, catch this. Since 2002, American students have experienced a steep increase in external locus of control and a decrease in internal locus. Now, please hear me. This doesn't mean our students are bad or evil or wicked. They're great kids. But somehow, because the world has become overwhelming with ubiquitous information at their fingertips, they just somehow look outside and say, I can't do anything. Maybe you can. Dr. Peter Gray at Boston College drew this conclusion. He said, in fact, the shift has been so great that the average young person in 2002 was more external than were 80% of the young people in the 1960s. Now, this next sentence is really key. Check this out. The rise in externality on Rotter's scale over the 42-year period showed the same linear trend as did the rise in depression and anxiety. Every one of us is aware of the mental health issues that Generation Z faces. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're growing up in a very different world than the one you and I grew up in. But this makes sense, doesn't it? Think about your life for just a minute. If you're going through a day where your calendar is full and it's out of your control, don't you feel a bit more anxious? Of course you do. And so do they. So our conclusion is we've got to provide a sense of ownership to Generation Z. Little by little, we need to give that ownership to them day by day, especially as they emerge as young adults. It was back in the 1930s that a guy by the name of John Duff acquired the very first patent for a cake mix. In other words, up to that point, everybody that ever baked a cake baked it from scratch. All the ingredients were theirs. But he developed a mix, you've seen these, where it's a box of powder. You just pour the powder into a bowl, add water, and stir. It's pretty simple. By the 1940s, major brands had picked up on this cake mix idea. And General Mills, who's still around to this day, who has Betty Crocker as a brand, developed their own cake mix in the 1940s, and they released it. But when they released it, they were wondering, why were people not buying this cake mix? Since the world was moving in the direction of speed and convenience, wouldn't you think an instant cake mix would be the right direction? But people just weren't buying it, to the point that General Mills hired a psychologist by the name of Ernest Dector to discover why customers weren't picking it up. And here's what they discovered. When he sat down in focus groups, this guy actually authored the very first focus group. Here's what he heard. People were saying, I don't feel like it's my cake. I feel like you did the work for me. I didn't do anything but add water. And so it wasn't attractive to a customer. And so Ernest Dector came back to General Mills and said, you need to remove at least one ingredient from that mix. Make them put one in. And when he removed eggs from the mix, sales began to take off. Isn't that interesting? All of us have this same sense. I gotta own it. And if I own it, I know that means I had to add more of my own ingredients. But that's what I need to mature well. And that's what I'm thinking Generation Z needs from us.